A Canaanite ship sitting nearly a mile deep, a Nabatean temple in the wrong country, and Aboriginal tools on land that's been underwater for 8,000 years. These artifacts aren't just old, they're in places where they were never supposed to be. First up, we have the Canaanite shipwreck. Just back in June of 2024, in the deep waters off the coast of Israel, researchers found a shipwreck unlike anything they'd ever seen before. It's from the late Bronze Age, dating back more than 3,300 years. That alone is rare, but what makes this discovery even more unusual is where it was found, nearly a mile beneath the surface, resting upright on the seafloor like it never even tipped. The ship still carried its cargo, hundreds of clay jars, sealed tight, possibly with oil or wine. There were no bones, there was no signs of a fire, just this vessel from another time, perfectly preserved in the cold dark. It's believed to be the oldest deep-sea shipwreck ever found, and the fact that it was out in open water, not close to shore, means that these ancient Canaanites may have been long-distance seafarers, something history hadn't confirmed until now. The site feels untouched, almost too untouched. For how long this ship's been sitting down there, it's in pretty good condition. Just this wooden ghost alone in the black depths of the water. Not far off Italy's western coast, under the blue waters of the Tyrrhenian Sea, sits the ruins of what appears to be a Nabatean temple. It shouldn't be there. The Nabateans, known for building Petra in present-day Jordan, were desert people. Traders, yes, but builders of temples in Italy? That wasn't part of the story until this discovery in 2023. At first, researchers thought it might be Roman. After all, there are plenty of Roman ruins along the coast, but when they took a closer look at the architecture, they realized it didn't match the Roman style at all. In fact, some inscriptions pointed east, back toward the Nabateans' homeland. The remnants of this place looked a lot like one of their temples. It was just sitting in the wrong place. There had been local legends of a drowned shrine off the coast, but no one knew exactly what it was. Some think it could have been sunk by an earthquake, which isn't usual in this area, but there's no record of the temple anywhere. It's not in any Roman texts, there's no mention of it in any ancient accounts, it was lost to history. The biggest question of all, though, is why did the Nabateans build a temple this far from home? Back in 2020, off Australia's northwest coast, archaeologists found something unexpected beneath the ocean. In places that are now completely submerged, they discovered ancient Aboriginal stone tools, hearths, and signs of long-lost camps. These sites are at least 8,500 years old, maybe even older. That means people once lived here, cooked their food here, made tools here, on land that hasn't been dry since the last ice age. Sea levels rose slowly, swallowing the coastline bit by bit. The people moved inland, but the sites they left behind stayed where they were, preserved under layers of salt water and silt. The tools are simple: stone blades, flakes, a grinding platform, but they're unmistakably human. Aboriginal groups have stories that go way back about rising waters, and now we've got the evidence to back that up. These aren't just old artifacts, they're part of a bigger story, one that's been passed down for generations. There's probably way more out there too, other ancient sites just waiting to be discovered. Every new find adds another layer to the history of people who knew this land and the sea way better than we ever realized. On the island of Abaco in the Bahamas, there's a deep circular pool known as Sawmill Sink. It looks calm from above, but under the surface, it drops into complete darkness. Divers exploring it have found the remains of animals that no longer exist. Giant tortoises, an extinct species of crocodile, and birds that haven't flown for thousands of years. Some of the bones still have soft tissue on them too. That's how untouched this place is. But it's not just animals. In 2004, divers found the nearly complete skeleton of a young woman. She lived over 1,000 years ago. Her body had sunk into the sinkhole and was preserved almost perfectly, sealed in the still, oxygen-poor water. Her bones told stories about her diet, her life, her people. She's one of the oldest intact human remains found in the Caribbean. Just north of Dublin along Portmarnock Beach, the ocean's been giving up some secrets, literally. After a big storm in 2024, locals noticed something strange poking out of the sand. At first glance, it looked like old driftwood, but no, this was a shipwreck. Not just a piece of it either, pretty much the whole thing, at least the shape of it anyway, which had been buried for who knows how long. Turns out, this wasn't the first time the beach had coughed up pieces of a ship, but this time, it got the attention of Ireland's National Monuments Service, and they came out to investigate. They already knew about that particular wreck from a few years ago, but while they were out there, they also found 3 more shipwrecks hidden just beneath the sand. These wrecks are believed to be from the 1800s, maybe even older. They're made from thick wooden beams held together with old school iron bolts, and even though the wood's rotted and soaked in salt, the craftsmanship still holds up. This stretch of coast is actually a bit of a ship graveyard. Around 50 wrecks have been recorded in the area, from centuries-old trading ships to coal boats. Most of them were just unlucky, caught in bad weather with no one around to help and no one left to tell the story. And because of shifting sands and powerful tides, these wrecks come and go. Sometimes they're visible, sometimes the beach just swallows them right back up. In 2012, divers working off the coast near the Croatian island of Ilovik found what turned out to be a part of a Roman cavalry helmet, submerged and buried in sand for centuries. It was found in a relatively shallow patch of sea not far from where other Roman-era items had washed up. This particular helmet fragment, heavily corroded but still identifiable, wasn't part of some grand archaeological dig. It was actually found by a recreational diver who later turned it over to authorities. What makes this interesting is the context. The area was part of a Roman naval route. Ilovik sits in the Adriatic, not far from ancient Roman settlements along the Dalmatian coast. This helmet, likely dating back to the 1st or 2nd century, may have belonged to a Roman soldier who went down with his ship, or it was lost during transport. Unlike the overhyped treasures of the deep, this artifact is simple, just a piece of someone's life, someone who probably didn't think, or at least want to think, that they'd end up at the bottom of the sea. In 2007, a team of researchers scanning Lake Michigan's floor made a strange discovery. They weren't really looking for anything, they were just mapping out the lake bed, but then they saw it. This circle of stones arranged deliberately, sitting 40 feet underwater. It looked like something out of Europe, something old. One of the stones even had what appeared to be a mastodon carved into it. The site hasn't been explored much since then, which is surprising. The waters are pretty murky, though, which makes it more challenging. Skeptics were pretty quick to dismiss this, saying it was just rocks that settled naturally, but the pattern, the symmetry, and the fact that one of the stones has an ancient mastodon carved into it, yeah, it definitely seems like there's more to this site than just a series of rocks. If it really is ancient, older than Stonehenge, it would change what we know about prehistoric people in North America. It would mean someone was building monuments here before written history, before cities, before anything we recognize. Off the western coast of Cuba, in waters over 2,000 feet deep, sonar scans revealed something that shouldn't be there. Massive symmetrical structures, straight lines, right angles, pyramids, or what really look like pyramids. It was first discovered in the early 2000s by a Canadian research team. They were expecting to find shipwrecks. Instead, they found what some would call an underwater city. The layout seems to suggest streets and plazas and buildings spread out over several square miles, but here's the problem. The site is so deep that if it really is man-made, it would have been at least 10,000 years old. That's before any known advanced civilization, before Egypt, before Sumer, even before the supposed rise of organized society as we know it. Some scientists are pretty skeptical, saying it's just a natural rock formations, but the shapes are unusually geometric, too clean, and there's no clear geological explanation for how they ended up arranged like that. The site hasn't been fully explored. Deep sea dives are expensive, and the Cuban government hasn't prioritized any further investigation here, so whatever's down there is just sitting and waiting. Just off the coast of southern Greece lies the ruins of Pavlopetria, a city that's now entirely underwater. You can still see the streets, the building foundations and tombs, all laid out clearly on the seafloor. It's over 5,000 years old, one of the oldest submerged cities ever found. Pavlopetria wasn't destroyed by war or fire, it just sank slowly, piece by piece, after a series series of earthquakes and rising sea levels. What's left is incredibly well preserved. No one ever built over it. No scavengers took the stone. It's just there, untouched under the waves. Divers have mapped out more than 15 buildings here. Some still have dividing walls, some even had plumbing. People lived their entire lives here, close to the sea that eventually claimed it. Pavlo Petri matches descriptions from ancient texts about cities swallowed by water. Some even link it loosely to the Atlantis myth. That's a stretch, sure, but when you see how complete the ruins are, it's hard not to wonder how many other cities might be submerged out there. Near the island of Bimini in the Bahamas, there's a line of these huge stone blocks resting on the seafloor. They stretch out in a near straight path for hundreds of feet, like a broken causeway leading into the deep. Some call it Bimini Road, others say it's part of something much older. The stones look placed, not random. Each one is rectangular, some over 10 feet long, and they fit together in a way that doesn't seem natural. Divers first found them in the 1960s, and ever since people have been arguing about what they are. Geologists say it's just a natural formation caused by erosion and fracturing, but the layout does feel deliberate. Some believe it's a remnant of an ancient harbor, or again, maybe even part of the lost city of Atlantis. And that's not just because it looks like the remains of a part of a city that's now underwater. See, Bimini Road sits very near where a supposed clairvoyant predicted that Atlantis would be found, a man named Edgar Cayce, who died in 1945. So that little detail has just helped fuel the rumors. But was Bimini Road actually a road, or does it just really happen to look like one? Perhaps. We'll never really know. There have been some pretty incredible recent discoveries in the Atlantic Ocean. A species of whale once thought to be extinct, a 66-million-year-old asteroid crater, a mysterious blob, and a series of strange holes in the ocean floor. These are unbelievable underwater anomalies discovered in the Atlantic Ocean. While on an aerial survey off the coast of Nantucket, scientists Orla O'Brien and her colleague were on the lookout for right whales, fin whales, and humpbacks. But O'Brien spotted one whale that seemed out of place. The whale had no dorsal fin, similar to a right whale, but its skin didn't match. Now, after getting a better look, O'Brien realized she was looking at a gray whale, a species that's been extinct in the Atlantic since the 17th century. O'Brien turned to her partners saying, quote, "I don't even want to say it. I don't even want to say what I think this is out loud because I don't think you're going to believe me." The two were in complete shock. How did this whale end up in the Atlantic? Well, O'Brien figures it probably came from the Pacific population, explaining that climate change is opening up pathways that used to be blocked by ice. But O'Brien also said it's unlikely gray whales will return to the Atlantic permanently anytime soon, calling the sighting a quote, once-in-a-lifetime experience. 66 million years ago, something massive slammed into the Earth, changing the planet forever. The event left behind evidence that stayed hidden deep under the Atlantic Ocean until now. A team from Heriot-Watt University has just brought us new details about the Nadir crater, the site of the impact. Using fresh 3D seismic imaging, they've confirmed that this crater likely formed around the same time as the Chicxulub impact, which wiped out the dinosaurs. The Nadir crater itself is huge, around 9 kilometers or 5.5 miles across, and was first spotted in 2022 by Dr. Usadin Nicholson using seismic data from the ocean floor off West Africa. But the new imaging tech has really given researchers a closer look at it, showing just how much chaos this impact caused. A massive tsunami would have washed over the area with shock waves making the ground move like a liquid. This also gives us a better idea of the size of the asteroid that caused it, which might have been way bigger than they originally thought. When it hit, it was moving at 72,000 kilometers per hour, triggering fault lines and mudslides all over. The next thing the team wants to do is drill into the crater to pull out core samples and get a better idea of what really happened. Beyond just painting a better picture of the event, the data could help us prepare for future asteroid threats because something like this could happen again. Out in the Atlantic Ocean, scientists have just found something pretty wild, a massive blob of water stretching from the tip of Brazil all the way to the Gulf of Guinea. Ocean water isn't the same everywhere. Instead, it's made up of all these interconnected layers and masses that shift and separate because of currents, eddies, and changes in temperature or salinity. So there are noticeable differences in water if you know what you're looking for. This blob, which they've named Atlantic Equatorial Water, had somehow slipped under the radar until now. Similar water masses exist in the Pacific in Indian oceans, but researchers had never seen any in the Atlantic. Viktor Zerbis, an oceanographer from the Shirshov Institute in Moscow, said that the idea of this water mass missing in the Atlantic seemed pretty strange, saying, "It seemed controversial that the equatorial water mass is present in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, but missing in the Atlantic Ocean, because the equatorial circulation and mixing in all three oceans have common features." End quote. So how do these masses form? Basically, they're created by mixing of different water bodies. Oceanographers figure out where these masses are by studying the relationship between water temperature and salinity. Thanks to floating devices called floats, which oceanographers use to measure the ocean's temperature and salinity, they finally found one of these masses in the Atlantic. Off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, scientists have discovered something of an underwater city, filled with huge rock structures, walls, columns, and monoliths, some as tall as 60 meters or about 197 feet. Now, sadly, this is not the remains of some lost civilization, but it is incredible on its own. The site was first discovered in 2000 and has since become a hotspot for marine life. It's not a city in the traditional sense, but the name stuck because of its huge, mysterious structures. What makes this discovery so wild is that the lost city is the longest known venting environment in the ocean. Basically, it's a place where heat and gases like hydrogen and methane are released from the seabed, supporting life in total darkness, around 750 to 900 meters below the surface. There's no sunlight here, so creatures survive off of chemicals rather than photosynthesis. Tiny snails and microbes live in these vents, and larger animals like crabs, eels, and shrimp have also been spotted, but they're trickier to find. The lost city is a bit of a scientific wonder, but because it kind of gives us clues about how life on Earth began billions of years ago, and it might even give us clues about how life could exist on other planets. North of the Azores near Portugal, scientists recently made a strange discovery while diving deep into the Atlantic Ocean. About 1.6 miles down, they found a series of holes in the ocean floor, arranged in tracks. They found even more sets of holes about 300 miles away from the first location. The holes, spaced about 4 inches apart, were around 5 to 6 feet long. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said in a post on the website formerly known as Twitter, "The origin of the holes has scientists stumped. The holes look kinda human-made, but the little piles of sediment around them suggest they were excavated by something." This isn't the first time strange holes have been found. Similar ones were discovered not far from this site almost 20 years ago, but scientists haven't found a clear explanation yet. Michael Vecchione, a deep-sea biologist with the NOAA, said in an interview with the New York Times, "There was something important going on there, and we don't know what it was." Reinforced the idea there was a mystery we would figure out someday, but we haven't figured it out yet. End quote. A team of researchers recently made an incredible find when they discovered hundreds of dinosaur footprints on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Led by paleontologist Louis L. Jacobs from Southern Methodist University, they found over 260 matching sets of early Cretaceous footprints in Brazil and Cameroon. The footprints were made about 120 million years ago and show where dinosaurs were able to cross between South America and Africa before the continents split apart. The two sets of footprints are more than 3,700 miles apart, but would have originally been made on a supercontinent called Gondwana, which broke off from Pangaea about 180 million years ago. A team of marine biologists led by Cindy Gonzalez from Florida International University just recently discovered a new species of hammerhead shark in the Caribbean and Southwest Atlantic. These sharks are part of the same genus as hammerheads. The new shark, named the shovelbill, is a smaller species, only growing about 1.5 meters or 5 feet long. Of course, they got their name because they have these flat, shovel-shaped heads. You can find these sharks in coastal waters, estuaries, coral reefs, and seagrass beds from Belize to Brazil. Unfortunately, though, they are at risk of extinction thanks to overfishing. These sharks are being caught in large numbers, especially in areas like Brazil, where fishing management is weaker. Scientists recently mapped the largest known deep-sea coral reef, stretching 310 miles or 500 kilometers off the US Atlantic coast. The reef was discovered thanks to new underwater mapping technology that lets researchers create 3D images of the ocean floor. The reef reef extends from Florida to South Carolina, and at certain points is up to 68 miles or 110 kilometers wide. To put it into perspective, it's nearly 3 times the size of Yellowstone National Park. It's much less accessible than tropical reefs like the Great Barrier Reef though, which is why it's taken so long to map. The reef is deep enough that sunlight doesn't reach it. Unlike tropical reefs where corals rely on photosynthesis, these deep-sea corals filter food particles out of water for energy. The reef is home to a whole bunch of sea creatures though: sharks, swordfish, sea stars, octopuses, and shrimp. The team is hoping that with more advances in mapping technology, even bigger deep-sea reefs might be found in the future. A recent discovery off the coast of Brazil has found that the Rio Grande Rise, a submerged plateau in the South Atlantic Ocean, was once a giant tropical island. Researchers from the University of Sao Paulo, led by Luigi Giovanni, spent nearly a decade researching this. The team used autonomous underwater vehicles and remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, to map the area and gather samples. They found sediment and volcanic rocks, showing that there were signs of weathering from a warm tropical climate. Turns out the island was part of the supercontinent Gondwana before it split apart. Luigi Giovanni explained, "We discovered that the clay was formed after the last volcanic activity occurred 45 million years ago," adding that the tropical soil was similar to the red earth found in Sao Paulo. It's a cool discovery not just for the history, but also for the future. The area is full of minerals like cobalt, nickel, and lithium, which could be used for renewable energy. Back in 2023, researchers discovered a new species in the Antarctic Ocean, officially called the Antarctic strawberry feather star. It's got a cute name, but it's far from cute. Sorta looks like a jellyfish, but not the glowing, majestic ones you usually think of. Instead, it's mostly just tentacles. Again, looks a bit like an alien facehugger, and some of those tentacles have tiny claws at the ends. These creatures can grow up to 8 inches long, which might not sound huge, but 8 inches of this? No thanks. Off the coast of India, divers found what might be the ancient city of Dwarka, tied to the god Krishna. In Egypt, Thonis Heraklion rose from the seabed with giant statues and sunken temples, and in Greece, Pavlo-Petri still sits almost perfectly preserved, under over 13 feet of water. These are ancient cities that disappeared under the waves. Pavlo-Petri is ancient, about 5,000 years old, making it the oldest submerged city we know of. Sitting in Vatica Bay off the coast of southern Laconia in Greece, it's believed to have been submerged around 1000 BCE, mostly thanks to a series of earthquakes and rising sea levels. But the cool part is, it's almost completely preserved under the water, with streets, buildings, and even tombs still clearly visible. You can make out a lot of the city's layout. Pavlo-Petri has been mapped out using modern technology like sonar, and archaeologists have been able to identify at least 15 buildings, some with multiple rooms. The town was home to a pretty sophisticated society. It was involved in trade, and the ruins even show evidence of different social classes, with fancy tombs for the elites and simpler graves for all the regular folks. Pavlo-Petri's history goes back even further than we first thought, too. Originally, it was thought to be from the Mycenaean period, around 1600 to 1100 BCE, but later studies pushed it to around 3500 BCE. After being submerged, it's been left mostly undisturbed. It's one of the most well-preserved ancient cities that we know of. At one time, Thonis Heraklion was one of Egypt's most important port cities, found at the mouth of the Nile Delta. It was a major hub for trade and religion, and a link between Egypt and the Mediterranean. It was also home to some seriously impressive temples, including one dedicated to the god Amun. But by the 8th century, the city had disappeared. The exact reasons why it sank are still up for debate, but it's clear that the city was lost to the sea. Eventually, it became a bit of a myth. But then in 2000, an underwater archaeologist named Frank Gaudio came across something while searching for the lost city of Alexandria. What he found were these massive statues, ancient ships, and sunken temples. The city had been buried under about 10 meters of water, perfectly preserved. It was the lost city of Thonis Heraklion, and ever since, there have been more excavations revealing more of the city's layout. There are streets, docks, and residential areas. This place was also a center of culture and religion. The artifacts discovered there, including a giant stone relief of a pharaoh and a huge statue of the god Happy, show how important this place was in its prime. Off the coast of Gujarat in India, divers started exploring near modern-day Dwarka in 1983. The project was run by India's National Institute of Oceanography. What they found underwater were massive stone blocks, walls, and what looked like sections of a city grid. Some of the ruins were sitting about 30 feet below the surface. The layout looked intentional. There were right angles, straight lines, even areas that looked like they might have been docks or buildings. This matched up with the stories from ancient Indian texts that talked about a city called Dwarka, said to be ruled by the god Krishna. Now, according to the text, the city was built on the coast and was later swallowed by the sea. That sounded like a myth for a long time until the underwater ruins turned up. Carbon dating and other tests on pottery and construction materials found that the site showed that some parts of it could be more than 3,000 years old. Some Indian archaeologists think this could actually be the original Dwarka mentioned in the Mahabharata. Back in the late 1600s, Port Royal was one of the biggest and wildest cities in the Caribbean. It was a major hub for trade, but it was also known for its pirates, its brothels and bars. Some called it the wickedest city on earth. It sat right at the mouth of Kingston Harbor, and at its peak, it had thousands of people and dozens of ships coming in and out regularly. But then on June 7th of 1692, a massive earthquake hit. The ground basically liquefied under the city, buildings collapsed, and in minutes, about 2/3 of Port Royal sank straight into the sea. Over 2,000 people died, and what was left was later hit by fires and hurricanes. After that, the city just never really recovered. In the 50s and again in the 80s, underwater archaeologists started exploring the sunken part of Port Royal, found streets, foundations, even some personal items like dishes and tools and weapons, still sitting where people left them when the quake hit. Xichang, also called the Lion City, wasn't lost in some freak disaster or anything. It was sunk on purpose. In 1959, the Chinese government flooded the area to make way for the Xichang River hydroelectric project. The city, which had been sitting there for over 1,300 years, ended up at the bottom of what's now Qingdao Lake, about 40 meters underwater. The city is still mostly intact though. You've got these ornate carvings, stonework, arches, and roads that haven't really eroded like you'd expect. Divers exploring the ruins found walls, towers, and gates that date back to the Ming and Qing dynasties. Xichang wasn't a small town either. It played a big role in the region's politics and economy at the time. Because the water's cold though, and low in oxygen, decay has been super slow. Today, the place is basically a time capsule. Not many people know about it unless they're into diving or Chinese history, but it's one of the most well-preserved underwater cities on the planet. Atlit Yam is one of the oldest underwater settlements we've ever found. It's sitting just off the coast of Israel, under about 10 meters of water, and it's been down there for around 9,000 years. The place was around during the Neolithic era, long before the pyramids or even writing. Back in the 80s and 90s, marine archaeologists started surveying the area and realized there was more than just a few old rocks down there. What they came across were actual houses, stone walls, and even a well. One of the biggest finds was this really interesting looking stone circle. Some believe it might have been used for healing or ceremonies, kind of like a prehistoric underwater Stonehenge. They also found human skeletons, tools, and signs that people here knew how to farm, fish, and live in permanent settlements. One of the stranger discoveries were traces of tuberculosis in the remains, making this one of the oldest known cases of that disease. As for why this city ended up underwater, most experts think a massive tsunami hit triggered by a volcano or a landslide. The timing does line up with a major collapse of the continental shelf in the Mediterranean. Canopus was an ancient Egyptian city near Alexandria. It was a pretty important place. A lot of trade went on here. It was also known for its temples, like one dedicated to Osiris. For a time, this city really flourished, maybe a little too too well though, especially during Roman rule. It was rich and luxurious, and people really started embracing the excess. It was so over the top that writers like Seneca and Juvenal called it out for how debaucherous it was. Seneca was a Roman philosopher and advisor to Emperor Nero, and Juvenal was a poet who made a career out of calling out all the messed up stuff that went on in Roman society. But by the 2nd century BCE, things started to fall apart here. Earthquakes, rising sea levels, and tsunamis slowly sank the city. The eastern side of Canopus got swallowed by the sea, and the western part became the modern town of Abu Qir. It was nearly forgotten until 1933, when a British pilot spotted some ruins in the water. That led to some archaeological digs, but it wasn't until the 90s that underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his team started uncovering the submerged city. What they found were columns, statues, and temples still sitting down there under the water. Dunwich used to be a decent-sized town on England's east coast. Back in the 11th and 12th centuries, it had busy docks, there were several churches, there was steady trade, and it had a relatively large population. It was a well-connected place, doing business with parts of Europe, and even had its own mint at one point. But starting in the 1200s, storms and coastal erosion started eating away at the land. A huge storm in 1286 wrecked the harbor, and over the next few hundred years, more storms and rising sea levels kept chipping away at what was left. So most of the original town is now underwater. Today there's only a small village on land, but some will say that you could still hear the sound of church bells rising up from the water. Baiae was basically ancient Rome's party town. It sat on the coast of the Bay of Naples and was the place where the rich and powerful went to relax. And they did other stuff that can no longer be spoken of here on YouTube. Emperors like Nero and Hadrian had villas here, and the town was packed with bathhouses, temples, and fancy estates. It had natural hot springs as well, which made it a popular spot for Roman elites looking to soak and unwind. But there was a shady side to it as well. Some ancient writers described it as a place full of scandal and corruption and political plotting. It was kind of like Vegas for senators. The town eventually declined when the Roman Empire fell, and between volcanic activity and rising sea levels, a good chunk of the place ended up underwater. Today, parts of it are still on land, but a lot of it, the whole villas, statues, mosaics, and roads, are now sitting beneath the sea. It's one of the only places in the world where you can actually snorkel or dive through this ancient Roman city. You'll see things like marble floors, collapsed columns, and the remains of Hadrian's villa. Pretty amazing, and I think adding this one to my bucket list. Curon was a small mountain village in northern Italy near the Austrian border, but in 1950 it got completely wiped off the map on purpose. The Italian government flooded the area to merge two natural lakes into one big artificial reservoir as part of a hydroelectric dam project. Over 160 homes, farms, and buildings were lost underwater. The villagers were forced to relocate, of course, and everything they left behind was buried beneath the lake. All except for one thing, the church tower. That single stone bell tower still sticks up out of the water today. In winter, when the lake freezes, you can actually walk right up to it. Locals say you can still sometimes hear the bells ringing, even though they were removed before the flooding. It's eerie. From submerged Mayan temples to ancient mammoth and ground sloth bones laying at the bottom of deep-sea caverns, these are some of the craziest discoveries made in underwater caves. The cenotes in the Yucatan Peninsula were super important to the Maya. These water-filled sinkholes weren't just places to get fresh water, they were seen as gateways to the underworld. For the Maya, they were more than just natural wonders. Guillermo de Anda, a specialist from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, said these cenotes were, quote, the main scenario of the myth of creation for the Maya. And these cenotes really are like a hidden world. Above the surface, they look like beautiful spots with crystal clear water, lush vegetation, and massive stalactites, but underwater, these cenotes lead to massive labyrinths of underwater caves, some of which are still mostly unexplored. People practiced rituals here. Offerings, altars, even bones have been discovered deep inside, giving us a look at how crucial these places were to Mayan life. One of the most famous cave systems is Sac Actun. It's the largest underwater cave in the world, believed to connect to other cave systems, possibly making the whole network over 1,000 1,000 kilometers, or just over 620 miles long. Inside these caves, explorers have found Mayan artifacts, animal remains, and even evidence of human sacrifices. The cenotes and caves of the Yucatan could completely change how we understand the early Maya, with some of the discoveries hinting at settlements and rituals long before the rise of the classic Maya civilization. In the spring of 2017, divers Sam Meacham and Fred Davos squeezed their way through a tight passageway, only 28 inches wide, deep in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. After swimming for half a mile, they finally reached what they couldn't believe was in front of them: a 11,000-year-old ochre mine, untouched and almost perfectly preserved. The site, named La Mina, was a time capsule. There were pits, broken stalactites used as hammers, and even old charcoal from fires. Early humans have been extracting red ochre pigment, which was later used in everything from cave paintings to mortuary rituals. Archaeologist Brandy MacDonald had been studying ochre for years and said this discovery was unlike anything she'd ever seen. The discovery gave the researchers a rare look into how some of the first people in the Americas lived, long before the rise of the Mayan civilization. Scientists also found remains of early humans, most famously the remains of a girl they named Naya, who fell to her death around 13,000 years before. The question was, why had she gone so deep into the caves? As Roberto Junco from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History stated, what the hell were they going down there for? This wasn't an isolated site. Radiocarbon dating revealed at least 2 other ochre mines in the area, dating back between 10,000 and 12,000 years ago. This shows that early humans had a sophisticated knowledge of their environment, with well-planned mining expeditions that lasted thousands of years. It's still a bit of a mystery as to why they went so deep into these caves, but there's a strong possibility that they weren't just used for practical reasons, they may have been spiritual too. The ochre they were mining was obviously important, often used in rituals. Holly Moyes, an expert on cave rituals, talked about how caves in early human history were often seen as sacred spaces, saying caves produced all kinds of good and evil, adding that the deep dark environments were perfect for rituals. For the Maya and other Mesoamerican cultures, ochre was sacred, possibly seen as a way to connect with the underworld. The Hoyo Negro, or Black Hole, is one of the most mysterious underwater caves in Mexico, and for good reason. Found once again in the Yucatan Peninsula, this place is kind of a time capsule. Scientists have discovered some really unexpected treasures here. When divers first explored it, they found an almost perfectly preserved set of remains belonging to a human who would have lived around 13,000 years ago, one of the earliest inhabitants of the Americas. The bones were also found along the remnants of extinct animals like mammoths, giant ground sloths, and saber-toothed tigers. If you're into shipwrecks, the Black Sea is like an underwater treasure chest. In 2015, a team of researchers made one of the most incredible finds in the region, an ancient Greek shipwreck, over 2,000 years old. What's amazing about these shipwrecks is how well preserved they often are. Because the Black Sea has a layer of anoxic, oxygen-free water deep down, anything that sinks below this layer doesn't really rot. It's like a giant underwater freezer. The wrecks, including the famous Greek merchant ship, are almost perfectly preserved. The shipwreck, discovered in 2015, was found at about 2,000 meters, or around 6,561 feet deep, and it was in incredible condition. The hull, the timbers, even the steering mechanism were all there. It was a huge discovery, being that it's so rare to find ancient wrecks in such good shape. This isn't the first or last wreck discovered here. There are dozens more, stretching back to the time of the ancient Greeks and Romans. The biggest question on everyone's mind now is what other surprises are sitting deep in the depths of the Black Sea? Could there be other sunken cities or undiscovered shipwrecks hiding down there? Well, the more researchers dive into the Black Sea, the more they find we've only scratched the surface. Now, this one's got a real mystery vibe about it. The Cave of the Swimmers, found in Egypt's Sahara Desert, doesn't seem like something that should be on this list. I mean, we are talking about underwater discoveries, but hear me out. Inside this cave, you'll find a series of ancient paintings on the walls, and some of them seem to depict people swimming. Something that doesn't quite add up. Why would ancient cave paintings show people swimming in the middle of the desert? I'm sure the Sahara hasn't always been a desert, but it has been for about 2 to 3 million years. These paintings, though, are only estimated to be around 10,000 years old, but they seem to show people swimming. So could there have once been a river or lake in the area that we just don't know about? The Cave of the Swimmers is famous for these unusual paintings that seem to suggest there was some kind of large body of water right where the desert is now. Lake Titicaca is a massive high-altitude lake between Bolivia and Peru. It's already famous for being one of the highest navigable lakes in the world, but here's where it gets really interesting. There's a submerged temple underneath it. Divers have found ruins in the lake that some believe could be connected to the ancient Tiwanaku civilization, a culture that existed in the Andes before the rise of the Inca. But the thing is, no one really knows how these structures ended up underwater. Some researchers believe that these temples were part of an ancient city, maybe even built to align with the stars or the movements of the sun, which was really important for Andean cultures. The theory is that Lake Titicaca could have been much lower in the far past, and that over time it flooded, swallowing parts of the city. Another thing that's really cool about these remains is that the stones used to build them aren't like any other stones found in the area. Definitely odd. Could this submerged site be part of a larger, forgotten civilization? Divers are still trying to map out just how far this site extends beneath the water. Now this one's really out there. Lake Baikal in Siberia is not only one of the oldest and deepest lakes in the world, but it's also a place where people claim to have found signs of an underwater alien base. The story goes that divers in the lake have reported seeing strange geometric shapes and metallic objects deep underwater. Some have even said they've seen alien beings. Some of these objects allegedly seem a little too perfectly shaped to be natural, and there are rumors that these objects could be remnants of a super advanced civilization, possibly even extraterrestrial, or that there's a currently existing alien base deep under the water. There have been reports of mysterious structures and strange energy fields being detected deep under the lake. Of course, it's said that these reports have been leaked by whistleblowers who have been told to stay quiet. What's really going on here? Are there just odd but natural rock formations, or is there something stranger going on? Lake Baikal is remote and deep enough that it could make for a pretty good place for a group of alien researchers to park their ships. Next up, we have the underwater cave beneath Paganica Bay in Croatia, which is not a recommended dive. The place is known for being incredibly dangerous. 4 people have died here between 2002 and 2015 on 3 separate occasions. In 2002, a diver was found dead 177 feet down in a cave wearing a dive suit but had no mask on. There was also a 12-inch blade sticking out of his chest. Now at first this seemed like a clear-cut case of foul play. 2 suspects were even arrested, but after they looked more into the diver's last dive profile from his dive computer, the cave's dimensions and other forensic evidence, it became clear that he'd likely taken his own life. It seemed that the diver, known only as MK, had gone in alone, got lost, and ran out of oxygen. As he began to drown, he found an air pocket, but knowing he wouldn't have enough air to make it back, he chose to go out quickly rather than suffer a slow, terrifying death from drowning.
Starting off this countdown, we have the HMS Sea Serpent. In August of 1848, the crew on the HMS Daedalus was sailing in the South Atlantic when they spotted this terrifying creature. According to the ship's captain and several members of the crew, they claimed that the monster was 60 feet in length, with 4 feet of its head raising out of the water. This massive sea beast lurked around the ship for 20 minutes before taking off. To this day, we don't know what it is that they saw. They described it as being a long snake with a dragon's head. Pretty weird and creepy, right? Well, they aren't the only ones who witnessed this too. It was spotted a second time by the American brig Daphne, and in fact, crew on board even shot at it. Scientists claim that maybe they just saw a whale. But come on, a bunch of experienced sailors would know the difference between a whale and something that's not a whale. And at number 9 today, we have the Mary Celeste. And if you guys are liking this video so far, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. To this day, the mysterious case of the Mary Celeste is considered one of the creepiest cases in nautical history. Basically, in 1872, the Mary Celeste was found abandoned in the middle of choppy waters. The crew was nowhere to be found. All the cargo on board remained untouched. Now, the lifeboats were missing, which makes people believe that the crew tried to get off the ship and flee. But why would they just abandon their ship like that? Well, we got a number of theories. 1, a sea monster got them. 2, a pirate takeover occurred. 3, they were abducted by aliens. Or 4, they consumed bad food and they all went mad. I know, it seems wild. To make matters weirder though, the crew and lifeboats were never found. No one knows what happened aboard that ship. In our 8th spot, we have the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, a group of divers went out looking for treasure in the Baltic Sea. when they came across something weird. It was a 70-meter-long weird object laying 300 feet below sea level. This thing has since been named the Baltic Sea Anomaly, and no one knows what the heck it is. It's just this massive steel-looking structure shaped like a disc with some weird patterns on it. Gets weirder when the divers claim their equipment randomly stopped working when they got closer to the object. There was a massive electrical interference there. So what is this thing? Honestly, we don't know, but some people think it's a glacial deposit left from thawing glaciers. Or it's part of a UFO spacecraft, from one extreme to another. Could be either or, who knows.
In our number 10 spot today we have the upsweep. We all know how little we know about the ocean, and that includes what kinds of creatures lie in it. So while this mysterious sound out of context probably wouldn't be that freaky, when put into this situation it becomes quite a bit more eerie. This sound is referred to as upsweep, and it was caught when the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory started its sound surveillance system in August of 1991. The sound is apparently more seasonal, with its peaks in spring and fall, but it is unclear if the changing of seasons is responsible for this sound, or if it's coming from something that lurks in the ocean and remains undiscovered. Just for reference, here is a clip of that sound played at 20 times the original speed. It is possible that this sound could be coming from underwater volcanic activity, but considering the fact that this has yet to be proven, I am here to ask the question, what if it's not? In our number 9 spot today we have Bermeja. Bermeja was an island that could be found on many maps spanning from the 16th to the 20th century, but in a 1997 survey, the island could not be located. In an extensive 2009 study, it was concluded that the island that was once labeled as Bermeja just didn't exist, which left a whole host of questions. The island was supposed to be located just off of the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, which is particularly important because if it did exist, its location would be integral to determining the boundaries for exploitation rights of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. So of course, when this island that's been included on many maps seemingly just doesn't exist anymore, people really began to speculate what could have happened. There are a few major theories with this one. The first is that the original observation of the island was incorrect, and then no one ever went to double check that this island existed. The next being that possible shifts in the geography of the ocean floor, along with rising sea levels, were the cause for this island to completely disappear. The third theory is the most mysterious out of them all, and this is the theory that the island was blown up by the CIA so as to expand the economic zone belonging to the United States. It certainly is not an easy thing for an island to just disappear, so it truly is quite a large mystery about what exactly happened here, and at this point, it is unclear if we'll ever know for sure.
In our 7th spot, we have the 3 men. In 2007, 3 Australian men headed out on an expedition together. 3 days later, their ship was found drifting by itself in the middle of the ocean. The men were nowhere to be found. That's not all. On the ship, they found knives all over the cabin floor, as if there had been a fight and people were scrambling for weapons. What happened to these men still remains a mystery to this day. But of course, we got the theories. One is that they got into a devastating fight and they all ended up dying. Or 2, their propeller became snarled in a fishing line. One dude went to go free the line but then fell into the ocean. The second dude tried to save him and then fell in as well, and then so on with the third guy, or who even knows. Okay, we don't know for sure, that's just a theory. The only thing we do know is that this case is pretty creepy. Moving on to number 6, we have the Kraken. So it may just be that the Kraken is real, but it's not what we think it is. In fact, the legend of the Kraken was thought to have been born after a number of sailors spotted giant squids while sailing. So the Kraken might actually just be giant squids. In 1870, a giant squid washed up in New Zealand. Legend goes that it was as tall as the top of a ship's main mast, and it could easily take over a ship by wrapping its tentacles around the hull and crushing it. Is this true? Who knows? But no one believed that giant squids were real until around 2005. That's when scientists caught a photo of one. Then in 2013 they got a video of one. Now they believe there are millions of giant squids out there. The mystery here is, what beast did the sailors encounter in 1870? Was it a ginormous squid, or was it a kraken, or is a squid a kraken? Who even knows, okay? There's just so many questions out there that we need answers to. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cursed shipwreck. Back in the early 2000s, a natural gas company was laying pipeline in the ocean when they came across a shipwreck. Nowadays, this shipwreck is considered cursed or haunted. Let me explain why. So after the shipwreck was discovered, a team was sent down there to check it out. But everything that could go wrong did. First, the exploration sub malfunctioned right as it was getting ready to explore the wreck. Then the Navy sent a research sub down there and it literally self-destructed upon entering the water. Then over the course of a couple of years, other attempts have been made to explore the ship, but those have gone wrong as well. None have been successful. So now it's believed that this ship is cursed and doesn't want anyone entering it. In our 4th spot, we have the disappearing submarines. In 1968, 4 different submarines all mysteriously went missing. As a result, people believe that this can no way just be a coincidence. Something was out there sinking these subs. The subs were the USS Scorpion, the Soviet submarine K-129, a French submarine Minerve, and the INS Dakar. In fact, the French sub and the INS Dakar disappeared only 4 days apart. The French submarine has still never been found. What's weird is that it disappeared only an hour away from its port, so you think they'd be able to track it down. But nope. So what are the odds that 4 massive submarines go missing the exact same year? What could have caused this? We'll probably never know. In our 3rd spot, we have Sylvester Butler Jr. Apparently a number of people mysteriously vanish off of cruise ships each year. Most of them have never been found. Today, let's look at the weird case of Sylvester Butler Jr. In May of 2017, Sylvester boarded a cruise ship headed to the Pacific Islands. While on board though, the crew noticed he was acting weird. He kept to himself, barely talked to anyone else, and housekeeping claimed that he never unpacked his bags. The only charge on his bill was the occasional soft drink he would order to his room. Also, every time the cruise made a stop, he never left the ship. Then somewhere between Fiji and the final port Sydney, crew noticed that he was missing. No one knows what happened to him. And the ship's CCTV footage revealed nothing. It's sad, but theory goes that Butler jumped off the ship and took his own life. Apparently he suffered from a chronic genetic kidney disease, so maybe he wanted to end his suffering. But we don't know for sure. On top of that, I believe that his body was never found. Coming in our 2nd spot today, we have the Stronsay Beast. The Stronsay Beast is the name given to a massive carcass that washed ashore on Stronsay Island on September of 1808. At first, people thought it was just the body of a shark, but this creature had paws instead of fins. So then people were hella confused. Not only that, but it was 55 feet long. But part of its tail was missing, so clearly this thing was even bigger than that. This beast was described as follows, and I quote, "Its flesh was described as being like coarse, ill-colored beef, entirely covered with fat and tallow, and without the least resemblance or affinity to fish. The skin, which was gray-colored and had an elastic texture, was said to be about 2 inches thick in parts." End quote. Not only that, but its bristles glowed in the dark when wet, and the contents in its stomach were red. So what is this beast? The Natural History Society of Edinburgh believes that it is a sea serpent of some sorts. Maybe the Loch Ness Monster or its long-lost brother, who knows. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Orang Medan. So this next mystery is pretty freaking creepy, I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna keep you up at night. So in 1947, 2 American ships received a distress call from the ship the Orang Medan. The SOS call was from a crew member that stated everyone on board the ship had died. Then all of a sudden, his SOS ended with his last message being, "I die." When the ships arrived, they found the ship completely unharmed. The entire crew, including a dog on board, had died. Everyone had a terrified look plastered on their face. No one knows what happened to the ship.
In our number 8 spot today, we have the Sarah Joe. The Sarah Joe was a fishing boat that departed from Maui in February of 1979. There were 5 crew members aboard the boat, and when they left around 10 a.m. that day, the skies were perfectly clear, but while they were out at sea, the wind began to change and they ended up encountering a horrible storm. People on shore who were rightfully worried about the crew headed to the shoreline to try and wave the boat back in, but they were unable to locate the boat at all. One of the passengers' fathers even went out on on a separate boat in the middle of the storm to try and see if anything could be done or if he could at least locate the ship, but to no avail. It was presumed that all of the crew members had been lost due to the severity of the storm. The following days of course consisted of many hours of searching, but neither the ship or any of the men were located. Flash forward almost an entire decade to September of 1988, and a member of the initial search team, John Naughton, was on a wildlife expedition on a deserted atoll around 2,000 miles from Maui when he discovered a small boat and a makeshift grave. He left the site as untouched as he could and immediately contacted authorities, who were then able to confirm that the boat was the Sarah Joe and the person buried in the makeshift grave was one of the passengers who went missing all those years ago. While experts do agree that the boat could have drifted here and it would have only taken about 3 months to do so, this area was surveyed in 1985 and there was no trace of either the boat or the makeshift grave. So where would the boat and this crew member have been from the 1979 disappearance until after the 1985 survey? These are the types of questions that still remain unanswered to this day. There are of course theories, but none that cover all the mysteries this story holds. In our number 7 spot today we have the Yonaguni Monument. Just off of the coast of Yonaguni in Japan, there is a diving location that has a high population of hammerhead sharks, making it a large and popular attraction. In 1986, a diver in the area noticed some formation on the seabed that resembled a structure of some sort. This led to a team of scientists going on a dive to gather more information, and this is when the Yonaguni Monument was officially discovered. The monument is made of sandstone and mudstones, but here's the mysterious thing. Scientists can't agree on its origins. There are some who believe that this is a natural formation, but there are some who swear that it is man-made. The stairs are over 165 feet long and 65 feet wide, which obviously means that they are strikingly huge. There are pretty reasonable arguments for both sides, and considering the fact that this thing is at least 10,000 years old, I guess it's fair that we may not have all the answers, but it certainly is strange that we can't quite figure it out. At the end of the day, I really don't want to meet whatever thing would need stairs this large. In our number 6 spot today we have the Milky Sea phenomenon. This phenomenon is certainly much more beautiful than the name would suggest, and while we kind of know what causes it, there are still many unanswered questions that surround it. The first recorded sighting of this phenomenon occurred in 1846 when Raphael Semmes, who was the captain of the CSS Alabama, spotted it and was horrified by what he was seeing. He wrote, "From the deep blue water into a patch of water so light it startled me. The whole face of nature seemed changed, and with a little stretch of the imagination, the Alabama might have been conceived to be a phantom ship lighted up by the sickly and unearthly glare of a phantom sea." This phenomenon is so bright that it can be seen from the satellites orbiting Earth, and while it looks amazing in pictures, I can only imagine how frightening it would be to see in person when little is known about why it happens. It is believed that the glow is caused by bioluminescent bacteria that grows in all oceans in our world, but in order to produce a glow like we've seen, this bacteria has to be multiplied by billions of trillions, and we don't know how or why this happens. Also, we don't know for sure if that is what is responsible for the glow, it's just our current best guess. Just for the sake of our expansive imaginations, let's say that it really is this bacteria causing the glow. Why does it come to the ocean surface? Why in such great numbers? Every time this happens, it's at unpredictable times, locations, and sizes, so basically it remains a strange but stunning ocean mystery. In our number 5 spot today we have the SS Beichimo. The SS Beichimo was built in Sweden in 1914 and it belonged to the Hudson's Bay Company. This ship was used to trade provisions for pelts in Inuit settlements along the Northwest Territories of Canada. On October 1st, 1931, the ship was ending its trading run and was packed with fur when it became trapped in pack ice. The crew decided to briefly abandon the ship and they traveled over the ice to the nearest town for shelter. Because of the location and the time, it wasn't exactly going to be simple for everyone to be rescued. On October 15th, the Hudson's Bay Company sent an aircraft to save 22 of the members, but 15 remained and began to prepare in case they needed to stay the winter. Because the ship couldn't be heated, the remaining crew members would return to the ship every few days to chip away some of the ice, but also to grab essential items from the ship. On November 24th, there was a powerful storm, and once it had cleared, the Beichimo was gone. The remaining crew assumed that it had it sunk, but this is really where our mystery gets started. An Inuk hunter spotted the ship around 72 miles from the camp the remaining crew members had set up, and somehow they ended up locating it, removing the rest of the valuables, and then abandoning it for the last time because it was believed that this ship wouldn't last the rest of the winter. After the rest of the crew was finally rescued, the ship ended up being spotted around 480 miles from its previous sighting. For 40 years after, the Beichima was frequently spotted floating in different locations, sometimes even providing people with shelter during storms, but was never once captured. In 2006, the Alaskan government began to work on a project to find the Beichimo, but since the most previous sighting, she has never been located again. While the ship is now presumed sunken, it would have been the longest sailing ghost ship of all time. Ships rarely survive for nearly as long while being unmanned, especially in the crushing icy waters. We still haven't found the wreck of this ship either, so perhaps it is still out there floating somewhere. In our number 4 spot today we have the Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea is like the Bermuda Triangle of the Pacific, as it lies in a region just south of Tokyo. This area is often thought as some sort of a paranormal area because of the consistent horrible happenings that occur in it. This area is one of the 12 vile vortices in the world, with the Bermuda Triangle being the most famous one. Above the Devil's Sea, planes are known to seemingly just drop out of the sky like something is reaching up and grabbing them. Methane deposits cause large explosions in the area, and during World War II, this area was the site of over 20 missing submarines. There have also been numerous ships, some twice the size of the Titanic, who have gone missing without a trace after sailing through the Devil's Sea. This is all to say that while we don't really know what lurks in this area, it's probably safest to just stay the heck away from it. In our number 3 spot today we have the Cassie Nicole. The Cassie Nicole was a boat that set sail from Richmond Hill, Georgia on April 10th, 1990 with 4 people on board. During the second day aboard, one of the passengers realized that the boat was suddenly taking on water, and at this same time the pumps and radio were not working, which left them with little to no options. The crew decided it was time to board a life raft and abandon ship. After a day of floating on this life raft, one of the passengers named Nathan saw the ship's hatch cover floating by them and thought that it might be able to support him better. Once he hopped onto the cover, he ended up losing sight of the other 3 crew members. Later in the day, he saw a freighter go by multiple times, and he was hoping that it had picked up the 3 crew members he had lost contact with. After 3 days of floating at sea, Nathan was finally rescued, but he received the news that the other crew members hadn't been found. Months went by with no sign of the others until a few months later, when Nathan's sister, as well as the owner of the boat, began receiving strange phone calls from someone who was speaking in Spanish. The person on the other line said their name as well as the names of the missing people, and in the final phone call the stranger said, in English, "I'm bringing them home," but there has still never been a sign of them. The family of the disappeared men believe that they may be alive somewhere but are being held in a foreign country, but why? And why would someone say that they were bringing them home only to not do that? In our number 2 spot today we have the loneliest whale. This whale has been nicknamed the loneliest whale in the world, but the truth is, we don't really know if that's true because we've never actually seen it. This whale, which we don't know if it's a male or a female or what whale species it belongs to, sings its song like no other whale does. The whale was first heard in 1989 on a hydrophone, and while the calls were most similar to that of a blue whale, there was one striking difference, and that was the frequency of the calls. This whale calls at 52 Hz, with regular blue whales calling between 10 and 40 Hz. Even fin whales are usually heard at 20 Hz, so it's just left everyone stumped as to what could be going on here. A researcher named Bill Watkins dedicated his life to trying to reveal what exactly is going on here, and while he passed away in 2004, he found that this whale was not only unusual, but totally unique. The biggest challenge is the fact that we cannot locate this whale. Their calls can be heard for hundreds of miles, and trying to find one single whale in the vastness of the ocean is next to impossible. Many people have suggested that perhaps the whale is deaf, and this is what has led to its unique song, but of course without the whale, how could we possibly know for sure? In our number 1 spot today we have the French sailors. Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hernas were French sailors who were hired to sail a boat to its new owners. Their trip would see them departing from Annapolis, Maryland and heading to Guadalupe, but when they never arrived at their destination, searches quickly began. Unlike many of the other stories similar to this one, there were actually sightings of this ship, most of them occurring along the intercoastal waterway, which was far off from the course the ship was intended to take. Along with these sightings came the frightening news that the witnesses claimed to see a third man on the boat which made people begin to believe that it had been hijacked, which wouldn't have been all that surprising considering the state of the art vessel they were on. Despite these sightings, the boat was never found and neither were the men. To add even more strange occurrences to this story, however, around 2 months after the disappearance, a police officer in South Carolina pulled over a speeding car. After a sort of strange encounter with those in the vehicle, it was later discovered that 2 of the 3 men in the car were the missing Yves Emmanuel and Laurent, but at this point they of course had already been released. What exactly happened here has never been fully discovered, despite this all happening in 1991. Were the sailors kidnapped? Were they part of an elaborate plan to steal the ship, despite their loved ones saying that they would never do such a thing? It all remains a mystery. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the Combe Sea Star. These guys may appear to be like sweet little Peach from Finding Nemo, but they most definitely are way more terrifying and dangerous. Also sometimes referred to as the Sand Sifting Star, these guys are a sea star that is the most widespread in their genus, which is found throughout the Indo-Pacific region. These guys are bottom dwellers, which usually means if you're coming into contact with one, it's likely accidental, so it's super important to be on the lookout for them. These guys have spines on them which can obviously cause injury to the skin, and their venom is in a gelatinous form around the spiny areas. The venom they possess is a powerful neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin, and since it's the most well known of all of the marine toxins, it will definitely be one we talk about again today. This neurotoxin is a sodium channel blocker, which means that it prevents the nervous system from carrying messages, which then translates to your muscles being prevented from contracting in response to nervous stimulation. If a lethal dose of this toxin has been ingested, symptoms will likely be present within 17 minutes, and they include things like gastrointestinal symptoms, sweating, headache, tremor, paralysis, and eventual death. This is all to say, although these guys might look relatively harmless, those spikes are scarier than any of us might have thought. In our number 9 spot today we have pufferfish. These are a fish that isn't necessarily a major threat to you if you're casually swimming on by, but because they're considered a culinary delicacy, their toxicity gets a little bit more dicey if you aren't quite sure what you're doing. If prepared incorrectly, the ingestion of pufferfish can be lethal because they contain the same powerful neurotoxin, tetrodotoxin, and some certain puffers also contain saxitoxin, which is another powerful neurotoxin. This one is also a sodium channel blocker, and it acts on voltage-gated sodium channels of neurons, which then prevents normal cellular function, which then leads to paralysis. When a lethal dose of pufferfish has been ingested, first the tongue and lips will become numb, which will then be followed by dizziness and vomiting, with the whole body slowly going numb. Eventually the toxin will paralyze the diaphragm, which will stop the person who has ingested it from breathing. If someone lives longer than 24 hours after ingestion, it is likely that they will survive, although coma might last still for several days. While the exact source of where pufferfish get their toxin has been long debated, at the moment the most widely accepted answer is that it is coming from a bacteria that exists in their intestinal tract. In our number 8 spot today we have the yellow boxfish. These guys are a species of boxfish that can be found in the reefs throughout the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, as well as the southeastern Atlantic Ocean, and to be honest, they aren't necessarily the most poisonous fish on this list, but its method of poisoning can be a cause for concern. When threatened or even just stressed out, these guys release their poison, tetrodotoxin, which we all know about, but the release is less than strategic. There's essentially no aim and they just shoot it out, swim away, and hope for the best. This is kind of hilarious in theory, but unfortunately this causes a lot of accidental poisonings to both human and other fish alike. In our number 7 spot today we have water hemlock. Water hemlock is a genus of 4 species of highly poisonous plants that like to grow in wet meadows, on the banks of streams, or really any wet and marshy area. Sometimes referred to as cowbane or poison parsnip, the members of this genus contain a toxin that is called sicutoxin. This causes central nervous system stimulatory effects like seizures. The toxin is present in all parts of this plant, however it is most concentrated in the roots of it. The ingestion of this plant can be fatal in humans, and there are actually reports in medical literature that document severe poisonings and death from water hemlock as far back as 1670. Although less common, poisoning can still occur through skin contact, so this plant is surely one that is best to stay away from entirely. In our number 6 spot today we have the flower urchin. These guys are a widespread and common commonly encountered species of sea urchin from the Indo-West Pacific. They like to make their homes in coral reef and seagrass beds or rocky and sandy environments. The toxins within the flower urchin are called contractin A, which is found to interfere with the transmission of signals at nerve endings and also causes red blood cells to clump, and the other is a protein toxin called petotoxin, which can cause muscle relaxation, sedation, and anesthetic coma, and at high doses can cause convulsions and death. These urchins don't have spines or spikes to deliver their venom, and instead it is done through what is called globiferous pedicellari. These guys possess really powerful sensors, and when disturbed they snap shut and inject venom. The amount of venom is said to be directly related to their size, so if you happen to encounter one, I guess I hope it's a small one? I don't know. I just hope we can all steer clear of them entirely. In our number 5 spot today we have the button polyp. Also known as green sea mats, these guys are a zoanthid that can usually be found in the shallow reef zones of tropical regions spanning all the way from the Caribbean to southeastern Brazil, but these corals are also often recommended to new marine aquarium owners, but this isn't necessarily great because the health risks associated with owning one can often be underestimated. The most common form of poisoning from these guys is by eating contaminated seafood, but it can also come from direct contact with the skin, eyes, or by inhaling aerosols or steam vapor associated with them. These guys contain palytoxin, which is considered to be one of the most poisonous non-protein substances known, and it is extremely dangerous because it can affect every cell type in the body. Symptoms can range from flu-like symptoms to extreme severe ones, and unfortunately there's no known antidote for it, just general medical treatment and supportive care. In our number 4 spot today we have the xanthid crab. These are a family of crabs sometimes known as gorilla crabs, mud crabs, or pebble crabs, but whatever you call them, they're highly poisonous and contain toxins that cannot be destroyed by cooking. The toxins they possess are similar to the tetrodotoxin and the saxitoxin that are seen in the pufferfish, and it is thought that they are also produced by a bacteria living in symbiosis with the crab. Many members of this crab family are brightly colored, as it is said to be a warning to potential predators of the poison that lurks inside of them. The good news is that they are poisonous rather than venomous, so it can't sting or bite, but eating them can lead to death. In our number 3 spot today we have the stonefish. These guys are one of the most venomous known fish, and although they are primarily marine, some species are known to live in rivers. Most of these guys can be found in coral reefs near the tropical Pacific and Indian Oceans. The name of these fish comes from their camouflage color, which allows them to blend in with their surroundings, but unfortunately because they're so good at disguising themselves, swimmers may not notice or see them and then inadvertently step on them, which can cause a whole slew of issues. When a stonefish is disturbed, it will inject an amount of venom proportional to the amount of pressure it's feeling, and this venom is coming from the glands at the base of their needle-like dorsal fin. The sting of a stonefish is said to be extremely painful, and if left untreated, it certainly can be fatal. The poison within the venom that a stonefish possesses is a proteinaceous toxin called verrucotoxin. The symptoms of this poison include respiratory weakness, damage to the cardiovascular system, convulsions, and paralysis. Although there are many studies that have been done on this toxin, much about how it works and the exact mechanisms of it are not yet fully understood, which just places this already terrifying creature in a cloud of mystery. In our number 2 spot today we have stingrays. Stingrays are most common in coastal tropical and subtropical marine waters throughout the world, and they are a group of sea rays, which are a kind of fish that are actually related to sharks. There are a wide variety of stingrays, but most of them are not normally aggressive and usually only attack when provoked. Stingrays can have anywhere from 1 to 3 blades, and when contact with the spinal blade or blades is made, it causes immediate trauma to the area with a cut, swelling, and muscle cramps from the venom. The venom from a stingray contains the toxins cystatins and galactin. Galactin causes cell death in the victims, while the other one inhibits defense enzymes. This combination can lead to increased blood flow in the superficial capillaries and cell death. In our number 1 spot today we have the blue-ringed octopus. These creatures look absolutely stunning, but you should absolutely stay as far away as possible from them. Found in the waters of Australia and Japan, the blue-ringed octopus is just as dangerous as it is unbelievable. These guys can be identified by their yellowish skin that is spotted with rings of gorgeous blue and black that change colors dramatically when the animal feels threatened. Despite their relatively small size, these guys are one of the most venomous marine animals in the world. If provoked, they may bite you. The bite is said to be pretty painless, with many people not even realizing they've been bit until the respiratory depression and paralysis sets in. That's right, these are another creature that has venom locked and loaded with tetrodotoxin, but the blue-ringed octopus would put some of the other creatures on this list to shame. These guys are carrying enough venom to kill 26 adult humans within minutes. One thing I failed to mention about tetrodotoxin before is that, as of right now, there's no known antidote, so it's really a game of luck if you encounter one of these creatures. Sleep tight with that information.
Starting off this countdown, we have David Fravor. David Fravor is a US Navy commander who spoke about some pretty terrifying things that he encountered underwater while working for the Navy. So according to him, twice while recovering spent practice munitions out of the water, he spotted a weird underwater object. The first time, he saw a dark mass underwater. He described it as being a big mass that was kind of circular. He said he was certain that it wasn't a submarine. For the second sighting, he was retrieving a practice torpedo when this same weird thing sucked it down into the depths of the ocean. The torpedo was never seen again. So what was this big mass that he was seeing? In our 9th spot, we have the naval report. After hearing David's interview, a 79-year-old woman contacted him. She said that her father was a naval officer, and when she was a child, her father showed her a telegram that stated that unidentified objects had been sighted going in and out of the water at one of their locations. The woman's father told her, and I quote, "We get these all the time, and it's always in the same area." But obviously, the Navy isn't going to release this information to the public. In our 8th spot today, we have the Sycamore Knoll. This is a weird underwater structure located close to Malibu. No one knows what it is, but it looks like a weird stadium-shaped structure, and it's located about 2,000 feet underwater. It's also massive. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles wide. It also has what appears to be pillars or columns supporting it up, and under there it looks like an entrance. One theory is that it's an underwater alien base. Crazy, I know. But a number of UFO sightings have been reported for years in that area. Some even claim to see UFOs landing in the waters in that exact area, and this was before the underwater structure was even discovered. Freaky, isn't it? What do you think it is though? Let me know in the comments below. In our 7th spot today, we have the unidentified object. Now, in case you were unaware, there's this whole theory that aliens live in underwater bases, and that's why a number of UFO sightings are by lakes, or people have seen these saucers rise up or into the lakes. Well, in 1970, biologist Ivan Sanderson published a book titled The Invisible Residence. In this book, he talked all about UFOs or USOs, unidentified submerged objects, aka UFOs that have been spotted going into the water or rising up out of it. According to this book, on April 19th, 1957, a crew member on board a Japanese fishing boat witnessed something very strange. He saw 2 metallic silvery objects descend from the sky and dive right down into the sea. He described them as being 10 meters long with no wings or anything. When the craft hit the water, it caused great waves and rocked their boat tremendously. So maybe the whole UFO, USO theory is true, and they're living underwater. Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the gold. Did you know that $771 trillion worth of gold lies hidden in the ocean? Yes, you heard me. Wouldn't it be nice to just be swimming along and bump into some gold and become a millionaire? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Ocean waters around the world contain about 20 million tons of gold in them. Each liter of water would contain approximately 13 billionths of a gram of gold. So you need to collect and filter an awful lot before becoming rich. And currently, there's no cost-effective method to remove the gold from seawater and be profitable. Now, people have tried. None have been successful. One case that I want to talk about has to do with a man named Ford Jerrigan. He came up with a plan for a gold accumulator. The plan was to extract gold from the Long Island Sound using a process involving mercury and electricity treatments. In fact, people thought that it was great, and before he knew it, he had investors, and he raised about $1 million for this project. But in the end, he scammed them all and fled with the money. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the giant sea monster. Now, if you watched my video on Google Earth, then you already have seen me talk about this. If you haven't, then, well, Google Earth basically caught a giant sea beast on their satellite camera. It was spotted off the coast of Antarctica's Deception Island. And no one, even scientists, don't know what it is. It could just be a whale, but it's still unconfirmed. Theories range from it being an underwater UFO to a kraken or another sea beast that we have yet to discover. To be honest, To me, it looks like a massive squid, but what do you think it is? Let me know in the comments below. In our fourth spot, we have the UFO video. More UFOs. Now, this was a leaked video showing what appears to be a UFO diving into the ocean. The video was filmed in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. Eventually, people were demanding answers, so the Pentagon eventually came forward saying that the video was authentic and that they don't know what the object is in the video. In the video, the object flies across the screen before stopping and slowly lowering itself into the water. Apparently, this was recorded by official Navy personnel. What do you think that could be? The Pentagon has no explanation for it yet. In our third spot today, we have the plastic. The amount of plastic currently in our oceans is disgusting. Currently, 5.25 trillion macro and micro pieces of plastic are in our ocean. There's 46,000 pieces in every square mile of the ocean. Every day, around 8 million pieces of plastic make their way into our oceans. And guess what? Fish are eating them, and then we're eating these fish. So slowly, these microplastics are ending up in our bodies. But not just from fish. From bottled water, beer, honey, sea salt, and tea bags have all been exposed as microplastic carriers. We're killing marine life and ourselves, slowly but surely, and the governments are hardly addressing this issue. In our second spot, we have the nuclear waste. Bet you didn't know this, but our oceans are radioactive. Since 1952, low levels of radioactive waste have been discharged into the Irish Sea, the English Channel, and the Arctic Ocean. This radiation can enter the food chain through plankton, and then the fish eat the plankton, and then we eat the fish. In fact, radioactive cesium and plutonium have already been found in seals and porpoises. And it's getting worse. As the nuclear energy industry grows, more and more radioactive waste will be disposed of and find its way into our ground and water supply. Again, another scary thing the government doesn't address. And in our number one spot today, we have the secret underwater bases. Allegedly, the government has a number of secret underwater bases. They're just hidden from the public, so we don't know about them. We do know of one base though, and that's the Naval Testing Facility in Lake Bayview, Idaho. The lake that it's located in is 1,200 feet deep, and it is pretty remote, so it's deep and secluded enough to run these tests. If they have one there, who's to say they don't have more? Starting off this countdown, we have the Solomon Island saucer. Over the years, there have been a number of UFO sightings near the Solomon Islands. Most witnesses experience the exact same thing. They see a UFO with strange lights rise out of the ocean and fly off into the sky. These sightings are what have led to the theory that aliens have secret bases underwater. One fisherman in the area said he saw this UFO and the lights raise out of the ocean and then fly by him. He said it got so close to him that he could feel the heat on him as it passed by. Not only that, but some people who have witnessed this ended up disappearing without a trace. So like, did the aliens come for them or something? Or what? Are they gonna come for me now? No thank you. Just don't go to Solomon Islands, okay? In our ninth spot today, we have the octopi. And I wanna say octopus is so bad, but I know it's not the proper plural, so we're going with octopi, whatever. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that octopi are some sort of version of an alien. Maybe they're related to aliens. So let me explain. So we all know that back in the day, tons of meteors crashed down on Earth. Well, they believe that the meteorites that crashed into the ocean from space actually contained some sort of organic material. Now, this either infected some sort of water species or allowed the material in the meteor to evolve into octopi. So really, octopi could just be composed of alien DNA. Now, to support this theory, they mention that both octopi and aliens are incredibly smart. On a number of occasions, octopi have pulled pranks on humans. They also have way different genomes than squids, which they're said to be closely related to. And also, they can change colors. They're just a really weird species. So what do you think? Could octopi be descendants of aliens? Maybe. Coming in at number 8, we have the Yonaguni Monument. Located in the depths of the Dragon's Triangle is this weird underwater formation, which has been given the name the Yonaguni Ruins. It's a bunch of weird structures that no one knows much about. Some say they are remnants of a lost civilization. Others believe they were created by aliens, and that they're part of a secret underwater alien base. Let's explore that theory. For starters, it's kind of odd that this monument is located in the Dragon's Triangle. This area is considered the Pacific's very own Bermuda Triangle. Over the years, a number of ships and planes have disappeared in broad daylight in calm waters in that area. Maybe this underwater monument has something to do with these disappearances. For example, in 1952, the Japanese government sent 31 individuals to go investigate this area. They all disappeared from that area without a trace, and their bodies and the ship were never found. Theory goes that this monument is being used by aliens in some way. Maybe it's interfering with our navigational equipment and causing these plane crashes and ship disappearances. Who knows? Coming in at number 7, we have Ivan Sanderson. In 1970, biologist Ivan Sanderson published a book titled The Invisible Residence. In this book, he talked all about UFOs or USOs, unidentified submerged objects, aka UFOs that have been spotted going into the water or rising up out of it. According to his book, on April 19, 1957, a crew member on board a Japanese fishing boat witnessed something very strange. He saw 2 metallic silvery objects descend from the sky and dive right down into the sea. He described them as being 10 meters long with no wings or anything. When the craft hit the water, it caused great waves and rocked their boat. This could be more proof that aliens have secret bases in the ocean. Coming in at number 6, we have the leaked UFO video. A recent leaked video from 2019 shows a UFO diving into the ocean off the coast of San Diego. And guess what? The Pentagon confirmed this video to be authentic. So basically, in this video, you can see a dark spherical object flying over the ocean. It was picked up by an infrared camera at night. The object flies back and forth across the screen before stopping and slowly lowering itself into the water. Apparently, this video was recorded by official Navy personnel. Take a look at it and see for yourself.
Took off, booking it.
Steam wind, topside, gust of 40.
What was flash?
What do you think that could be? The Pentagon has no explanation for it yet. Also, the area was then searched and no craft was ever recovered or found. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, a group of divers went out looking for treasure in the Baltic Sea. That's when they came across something weird. It was a 70-meter long weird object laying 300 feet below sea level. This thing has since been named the Baltic Sea anomaly, because no one knows what it is. It's just this massive steel-looking structure shaped like a disc with some weird patterns on it. It gets weirder when the divers claim their equipment randomly stopped working when they got closer to the object. The thing caused a massive electrical interference there. It's believed that this thing could be part of an ancient alien spacecraft. To this day, this thing still baffles scientists. They don't know what the heck it is. In our 4th spot today, we have the underwater crop circles. Underwater crop circles don't really need an explanation. They're crop circles found underwater. They're actually quite beautiful. It's just a bunch of almost perfect circles with a design found at the bottom of the sea. Scientists have said that they are made naturally by pufferfish while on a journey to find a mate. Blah, 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 okay? It's kind of weird how perfect and detailed and intricate these circles are. You decide what you want to believe. Are they made by fish or are they made by aliens? In our 3rd spot today, we have the underwater Stonehenge. Turns out that there's a version of Stonehenge located right at the bottom of Lake Michigan. There are a bunch of random rock formations that scientists have been struggling to explain, but it's believed that they are thousands of years old. What makes it even weirder is that on one of these stones, they discovered a carving of a mastodon, a relative of an elephant that went extinct over 10,000 years ago. So they were like, maybe this structure has been here since the last ice age. So we really don't know how old they truly are, or who built them, and why. But of course, ancient astronaut theorists believe that aliens are involved in this somehow. In our 2nd spot today, we have the weird space alien creature, Alien. So it was captured in 2013 by a remotely operated vehicle. The vehicle was 3,753 below in the Indian Ocean when it saw this creature. Now the creature is quite beautiful. It looks almost like a jellyfish, but it's a creature we have never seen before. As the video goes on, we literally see it shapeshift in front of our eyes, and it starts to glow different colors. Then at the end of the video, it disintegrates from Earth. And in our number one spot today, we have the Sycamore Knoll. The Sycamore Knoll is a weird stadium-shaped structure located about 2,000 feet underwater. It's massive. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles wide. It also has what appears to be pillars or columns supporting it. And under there, it looks like an entrance. So automatically people were like, yeah, that for sure is an entrance to an alien base. And not gonna lie, it looks like it. This base was first discovered on Google Maps and it's located close to Malibu. People have claimed to see UFOs landing in the waters in that exact area before they even knew of that underwater structure. Freaky, isn't it? To this day, scientists don't know for sure what this thing even is.
Kicking off the list at number 10, living fossils. Also referred to as crinoids, but living fossils sounds way better, definitely. These little guys went extinct 273 million years ago, or at least so we thought. We found these dudes this past year, and they're these non-skeletal corals. They're cousins to starfish and sea urchins, but I gotta admit, they don't look nearly as cool. Starfish are the coolest, they're OGs. Discovered on the Pacific Ocean floor, this type of coral will attach itself to the stem of Japanese sea lily, and then they just become one over time. Any type of ocean life that undergoes symbiosis, that creeps me right out. I don't like barnacles. I have a fear of the ocean, and I'm super glad that we're doing this list. So let's move on as I get goosebumps. Ugh, I hate this. Thalassophobia, I think, is like a fear of deep water. I have that. I also have a fear of shallow water. I can't swim. Number 9, Chuck Lagoon. This lagoon was Japan's main base during the war, but come 1944, the United States launched an attack, what some deem is Japan's Pearl Harbor, where 60 ships were sunk and around 250 planes went down. So for 70 years, there's been a massive graveyard sitting in the Pacific, and it wasn't until recently where we got a good look at these haunting artifacts. A photographer by the name of Super Jolly went down and did the dirty work for us. He called this shoot one of the scariest dives he's ever done in his entire life. They described the atmosphere filled with human skulls, gas masks, and bullets as haunting. Yeah, you don't say. Nobody was expecting these artifacts to be that well preserved after all this time. That's the terrifying thing here. Photos are even still intact. You can see people's family members just sitting at the bottom. How sad is that? It's a haunting reminder of naval warfare, and also humans mostly suck. Number 8, MV Derbyshire. This ship was twice the size of the Titanic, but James Cameron didn't make a movie about it, so let me fill you in with less of a budget. MV Derbyshire was the biggest British registered merchant ship of all time to go down. That's an odd brag, but hear me out. She was assembled in 1976 but lost in 1980 en route from Canada to Japan. A Mayday distress call was never issued, and it was following proper ocean routes with weather routing companies, so they were doing all the right things. What happened? September 15th, 1980, a search began for the missing ship and crew, but 6 days later, the search was called off. Nothing was found. The ship was declared lost. The sister ship of the Derbyshire ended up sinking as well later on in 1986 due to deck cracking, so the families urged officials to search again for answers. Come 1994, the Derbyshire was found. Number 7, Garbage Island. There's a lot of treasure in the sea, but there's also lots of garbage because humans suck. Sorry. I mean, look at the top of the Pacific for the example, not even below it, but right on the surface, we have something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's located safely in the North Pacific subtropical gyre. There's basically 4 of these large systems, which are just massive swirling ocean currents moving warm and cool water about. They're whirlpools of garbage now. No wonder aliens don't want to come. They're like, no, this looks like let's just go to that planet. A plastic bag, for example, was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. We now have the deepest piece of trash. Kinda hard for Ariel to sing under the sea when she's got a plastic bag wrapped around her head. This great patch is larger than you think. It's more than twice the size of Texas. It's grown up to 60,000 square miles. Please recycle. Number 6. Yonaguni Monument. This structure was discovered in the 80s near Yonaguni Island in Japan, and the claim is that this is an ancient city, or it was long ago. It's 160 feet long and 65 feet wide, and we're pretty torn over this one. Some think it's man-made, with the lines being so straight that it looks like paths were literally carved out. And I mean, to be fair, that looks like a little staircase. If this was on land, I'd be climbing all over it. I'd think it was made on purpose, some ancient jungle gym. But the fact that it's so deep underwater makes us think that it was a natural formation, obviously. No one's going down there like pickaxing, holding their breath. The footage of it is pretty incredible. If I were to come across this, there's no way I would believe that it's all natural. What do you guys think? Number 5. Holes. If you have trypophobia, you may want to look away for this next one. I have it, but I have a job to do, so I'll suffer. Off the coast of Big Sur, California, a survey revealed about 15,000 holes, and they're all roughly the same size. They all measure up to about 11 meters wide and 1 meter deep. The team at Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute found 15,000 of these, and then they found 5,000 more that are even bigger. The little guys are micro depressions and the big ones are called pockmarks. Initially, scientists thought methane under the sea floor was coming out to say hello, and then they left a crater. Rovers went down there, tests were done, no methane. In fact, there hasn't even been any activity for 50,000 years. These craters are doing a pretty good job though when it comes to the ecosystem. Now there's deep sea creatures just living in them without paying rent. How rude. They even found a whale skull just laying in one. Imagine being a crab and coming home to that. Number 4. USS Nevada. Deemed the unsinkable ship, and for good reason, the USS Nevada was lost in 1948, and it wasn't until a year ago where she was seen again. Unsinkable ship that sunk. What's going on here? Well, during the 1941 surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the USS Nevada was the only battleship to get away in one piece. But barely. They barely got away. It took years of repairs, but she finally returned to battle in 1944 to support the Normandy invasion. A year later, it assisted the invasions of Okinawa and Iwo Jima, and then 2 atomic bomb tests were performed, and then post-World War II, she was finally deemed too ancient for service. So the Navy used the USS Nevada as target practice, and it took 5 whole days and lots of power to finally sink it. A torpedo was the final strike. And after it sank, the Navy wasn't really sure where exactly it would end up. It was more than 15,000 feet below the surface, so it could have gone literally anywhere. Hence why we can't find anything else on this list. You get it. Cut to last year, May 2020, a joint expedition by Ocean Infinity and Search Inc., led by Dr. James Delgado, found her. Just 65 nautical miles southwest of Pearl Harbor. Took a little while, but we gotcha. Number 3. Amelia Earhart. Yeah, you heard me, Amelia Earhart. The first woman to fly across the Atlantic, was well on her way to setting even more groundbreaking records, but her plane tragically disappeared somewhere over the Pacific in 1937. It's since been a great mystery where the final resting place of Amelia Earhart is, but we may have actually found her remains back in 1940 on the Pacific island of Niku-Maroro. The initial examination of these remains were reported to be that of a man. That was the general idea in 1941, but come 2018, however, we now have a different idea. Science got better, our ideas got smarter. Researcher Richard Johns took another look at these lost remains, and since those days we've learned more about Amelia Earhart. Photos have surfaced since, so now he's comparing the bone measurements to her body type, and they're actually pretty sure that that's our missing aviator, and that we had her the whole time and we just didn't know. Number 2. The Dragon's Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle is located in the Pacific, obviously, as are most of these, and it's like the evil sister of the Bermuda Triangle, and just like that triangle, this one also takes the blame for disappearing ships and planes, and apparently UFOs are flying about. Of course. It's referred to as the Devil's Sea. These names are so scary sounding. Like, I don't know, change the names and maybe it won't be spooky anymore. Just an idea. There have been UFO sightings, magnetic anomalies, planes and ships vanish. In 1945, for example, a Mitsubishi A6M0 went missing and the pilot's distress call said the sky is opening up. Then they disappeared. 1955, a Japanese ship named the Shinyo Maru lost radio contact, and it didn't take long for the New York Times to coin the term the Devil's Sea. All these spooky triangles are ocean currents to blame, or is there something truly paranormal about the Devil's Triangle? Let us know in the comments down below. See Illuminati confirmed. And finally, number 1, crop circles. We'll finish this list off with a cute one, I guess. Although I'm arguing this is still pretty terrifying. Crop circles on the ocean floor. Aliens confirmed. They were first spotted back in 1995 off the southern coast of Japan, and for 16 years these things were blowing the minds of divers. Nobody knew where they were coming from. They would just be there one week and then gone the next. Tiny aliens or tiny pufferfish. That's right. In 2011, one of these dudes got got caught in 4K, and it's one of the weirdest but most cute things I've ever seen. These male pufferfish, they try and lure in the ladies by making art. Yeah, some birds dance like crazy with their weird mouth-looking wing things. Some fish make art, I don't know, deal with it. Animals are. The thing that baffles me, concerns me if anything, is that the pufferfish uses a shell, like he uses a tool to carve out his emotions. Check this out.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have globsters. What is this? I will give you a good 5 seconds to look and then you can let me know what you think it might be. Nope, the answer isn't a decomposing luck dragon. I don't think so. Anyway, like, maybe it actually is though. I kinda tricked you because nobody really knows what this is. This was found ashore in the beach town of San Antonio in the Oriental Mindoro region in May 2018, this in the Philippines. Unidentified washed up sea creatures are referred to as globsters because they're globby and blobby, I don't know. Some people think that it was a whale, but the 6-meter long object was actually covered in white hair, which, as we know, whales are not. A lot of superstitious locals thought it was a bad omen. Local resident Tam Malling said, "The big lobster is a sign of something bad coming. Please pray for us." To be honest, if I saw this monster, I'd pretty much start praying too. The less superstitious were simply complaining of the awful smell left by the dead creature. Ugh, I can only imagine. Hands up arachnophobics. I see you, I feel you. Maybe you might want to close your eyes at number 9 because we have sea spiders. Nope, 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 nope. And a second helping of no. It seems that spiders aren't just a land thing. I thought the spiders of the sea were crabs, but I was wrong. This particular menace that has been accidentally dragged up from the ocean is the Southern Ocean giant sea spider, not to scale. He's big. He's really big. Some fun facts for you, this leggy blonde has organs in its pins. Literally. Ugh. And also, something else it literally does? Yeah, it sucks the life out of its prey through its legs. No thank you. No. I'm like, just gonna respectfully decline all sea spiders for the rest of my life. It's a choice. Also a choice at number 8, we have peanut worms. Oh my, just when I thought I swore off peanut worms forever, here they are in my video. Get out. Seriously though, I am horrified by these creatures from the deep. The peanut worm is making me feel, I don't know, I feel like uncomfortable isn't really a strong enough word. I would say deeply uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable. Imagine being the poor soul that pulls one of these up from the ocean. Like, seriously, that really is probably more than they bargained for and isn't really safe for work. Look at them, flopping around being worms. Do you want to see a bunch of them together? Here you go. I honestly totally get why they're called the peanut worm, but at the same time, can we think of a slightly better name for them? Do you guys want to see one moving? Right, not so bad, right? Okay, I'm absolutely not here for this. Coming into number 7, we have the pelican eel. No, thank you, no. Like, does he or does he not look like a demon alien from the planet Gulp? I'm really not here for an eel in general, but a pelican eel? Ugh. This here chappy bob is a deep sea fish rarely seen by humans, but is sometimes hauled up by deep sea fishing efforts. Imagine bringing one of these to the surface, like ah. Some facts you need to know about this sea beastie. The last one you're actually gonna love. Firstly, it likes to whip its tail back and forth. Secondly, it can glow pink and red if it wants to. And thirdly, do you know what? I don't even really know how to explain it to you, so maybe I'm just gonna show it to you. Wait, what? What is that we are approaching here? Let's take a closer look. Oh, it can inflate. Cool. Great, said no one ever. Coming into number 6, we have this barnacle monster. I have to say barnacles are my absolute least favourite. You know in Pirates of the Caribbean when you meet Barnacle Bill? That's my literal nightmare monster. A barnacle on my face. Ah! So in the spirit of how much barnacles turn my stomach, I want to show you this utterly bizarre monster that washed up on a beach in New Zealand. News networks were dubbing this creature a monster, and it is easy to see why. So this is a boatload of gooseneck barnacles, and they're attached to something. They're long-necked barnacles and they certainly look weird. Do you want to see them up close? Okay, so we know the explanation. It doesn't mean the thing that washed up wasn't any less scary because bleh. Coming into number 5, we have the lamprey. No! I'm running out of ways to say no. I guess there is only one way, and no. You may have seen images of lampreys floating around the internet. They make for shock thumbnails, but actually, these fanged demons are no clickbait. They're very, very real nasties of the ocean. They're primitive eel-like fish from the North Atlantic and the Baltic. Sadly though, they have actually invaded the Great Lakes of the United States and Canada. They're a pest. Anyway, do you want to see inside the mouth of this devil on Earth or ocean? Yep, they are terrifying. Just as terrifying as the thumbnails, right? How do they eat? Well, they are parasitic and they bore into flesh of their prey, sucking their blood dry. Brilliant! Ho-ho! Coming into number 4, we have the anglerfish. Nope. Do you want to see a lovely picture to brighten up your day? Of course you do! Let me show you. Wait, what? No! That happy fisherman has dragged up an anglerfish from the ocean, and these are, gross, right? Horrifying. Do you want to see what it looks like when it hasn't been bested by a pesky human? You got it. Here it is. And another. Lovely! That is a female. But do you want to know what happens with the males? Do you want to know how they breed? Basically, the males are much smaller and they're parasites. They attach themselves to the back of the female and then they impregnate her without her noticing. Aha! Once he is attached to her, he basically dissolves into her body. Nature! Ain't it beautiful? Back with the unexplainable at number 3, we have the Montauk Monster and the Brooklyn Bridge Monster, because they might actually be the same type of dead thing. A grotesque dead animal washed up on the shore in Montauk in the American state of New York in 2008. Now the monster looks kind of like a cooked dog with a beak. It had cryptozoologists going absolutely wild. Now a similar unexplained creature washed ashore on the Manhattan facing side of Brooklyn in 2012. The pictures are kind of awful, so maybe close your eyes for a second. That's really sad. I feel really sad. Another unexplained washed up monster at number 2. What could this be? It's definitely more fishy than our number 3. Like literally, what is this? This terrifying fish was dragged up from the ocean by a Russian fisherman in 2017. It became a social media sensation. Roman Fedorstov has become Instagram's most famous fisherman. What an accolade. He has over 510,000 followers, which is crazy. Although none of them can tell you what this creature is. It's terrifying. That's all I can say. Also terrifying are all of the other creatures that he has papped and snapped and uploaded to the gram. None such as terrifying as the blobfish though at number 1. Mr. Blobfish, he scares me, but actually, I think I love him. Look at his repugnant, creepy face, but yet there really is something weirdly cute about it, and I think that's what scares me the most. These are a deep sea fish that live off the waters of Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand. To me, the blobfish kind of looks like a bladder. A bladder personified. It looks like it acts. Basically, it floats around with little energy and effort, swallowing things that pass by. It's like the Mondays of the ocean. He just looks really glum. I get it. It'll get better, blobfish. Can you imagine being the fisherman that brought up the blobfish for the first time, honestly? It has been voted the ugliest creature in the world, but honestly, I actually think that I'm somewhat here for it. I mean, I'd never want to touch one, but I do love that they make blobfish plushies. Seriously, look at it. Look at the sushi one! I think I actually might need it. I'm so confused. So guys, that was the top 10 scary creatures pulled up from the ocean. What did you think to this list? Which creature would you least like to come face to face with? Let me know in the comment section down below. And also don't forget to let me know if you're pro ocean or no ocean, or if you've never seen it.
Starting off this countdown, we have the giant cannibal shark. Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. Honestly, maybe it is. So in 2003, scientists tagged a 9-foot-long great white shark. They did this in order to study the temperature changes in the ocean. Here's the thing. Several months later, the tag washed up on shore. The shark, nowhere to be seen. They checked the information on the tag, and that's when they were shocked. About 4 months after the tag was put on the shark, it dove to around 1,900 feet. They believe that's because the shark was attacked and eaten by something. But what creature in the ocean is going around eating a 9-foot long great white shark? They still don't know. It could be a massive sea creature that we haven't found yet. Or they think it might be an even bigger shark, making it a massive cannibal shark. If you're not afraid of the ocean yet, then this for sure has done it for you. Coming in at number 9, we have the lost city of Atlantis. There's a city that lies sunken underwater just off the coast of the Japanese island Yonaguni, making it Japan's very own Atlantis. Many people believe that the city is around 5,000 years old. There are complete pyramids, ruins of castles, structures etched with faces, and rock sculptures that look like animals all underwater. It's theorized that a terrible earthquake caused the city to be engulfed by water. But to this day, we don't know the true origins of this mysterious underwater city. Conspiracy theorists believe that the CIA destroyed this island in order to expand America's economic zone. Unless we travel back in time, there's no way to find out more about the city and what happened to it. Coming in at number 8, we have Carol A. Deering, aka the ghost ship of the Outer Banks. So on January 31st, 1921, the Carol A. Deering was found abandoned off of Cape Hatteras in North Carolina. The crew was nowhere to be found. On top of that, tons of stuff was missing from the ship, including the crew's personal belongings, life rafts, logbooks, and navigational equipment. To this day, no one knows what happened to the crew aboard the ship. But of course, we got some theories. Theory 1 is that a mutiny occurred. Theory 2 is that they were ransacked by pirates. Theory 3 is that they were taking part in rum running. People stole the ship to use for the rum running, and when they were done, they just abandoned the ship and left it there. But like I said before, we don't know for sure. In our 7th spot, we have the electronic fog. Okay, this one is pretty weird, not gonna lie. So on December 4th, 1970, a man named Rob McGregor was flying over the Bermuda Triangle when he was met by this weird tunnel-shaped vortex. He entered it, and apparently his wings sounded like they were scraping along metal. All of the electronic and magnetic navigational instruments malfunctioned. When he looked up, all he saw was a dull gray fog. Also, there were strange clouds forming behind the airplane. They were only in the clouds for a couple of minutes, but claimed that they traveled for 40 minutes. When they got out of the fog, they were over Miami Beach, a flight that would have taken 75 minutes. He believes that this weird fog is what has caused other planes and boats and passengers to disappear in the Bermuda Triangle. So what is this weird electronic fog that he encountered while over the ocean? That's something I want to know. In our 6th spot today, we have the time travel. Legend goes that one day 3 ships were traveling through the Bermuda Triangle. Everything was going fine until they encountered a mysterious fog. When they emerged through the other end of the fog, there were only 2 ships. The other ship was way ahead of them. The crew aboard the ship claimed that the fog transported them back in time several years. There, they saw a bunch of different boats and passengers also sailing. Then they approached the same fog and they got transported back to the current day. Isn't that weird? Was this the same fog the pilot encountered? Like, what is going on in the ocean? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the disappearance of Keith Davis. Now, this case is certainly going to keep you up at night, so just a little warning. So in 2015, Keith Davis, a fisheries observer, headed out to sea with his crew. His job was to monitor all the catches and collect data on it. But about a month later, Keith disappeared off the ship in the middle of the day in broad daylight. He has never been found. On top of that, the weather that day was calm, and he was an experienced observer, so it's not like he just fell overboard by accident. So what happened to him? Well, theory goes that he knew too much, so someone got rid of him. When police searched his email, they found photographic evidence of illegal things happening on board these ships, like they were allegedly smuggling people. He was also keeping track of a number of rule violations. Not only that, a year before his disappearance, Keith sent a mysterious email to his friends. In the email was a video of 4 men being shot to death while holding onto debris in the ocean. So theory goes that Keith was killed for knowing way too much. But still, to this day, we don't know exactly what happened to him. Coming in at number 4, we have the Ellen Austin. In 1880, a ship named the Ellen Austin set sail to New York from Liverpool. During their travels, the crew spotted a ship floating near the Bermuda Triangle. They approached it and found that nothing was wrong with the ship, but all the crew on board were missing. So they decided to put some of their own crew members on board this mysterious ship and have it come with them. But during the trip, the two ships got separated. They were separated for a couple of days before the Ellen Austin spotted the ship once again. However, all their crew on board vanished. There was no trace of them. Now the story goes on saying that they placed another set of crew members aboard the ship, and once again the exact same thing happened to those men. They disappeared off the ship without a trace. But that account hasn't been confirmed. Either way, this mystery gave birth to an urban legend. Basically, a cursed ghost ship lurks the waters near the Bermuda Triangle. Those who hop on board will mysteriously disappear without a trace. In our third spot, we have the disappearing aircrafts. In 1945, 5 torpedo bomber planes took off for a 3-hour exercise. But while flying over the Atlantic Ocean, they disappeared without a trace. It all started when the flight's leader noticed that his compass wasn't working properly. So he was worried that they were flying in the wrong direction. He instructed the planes to then change paths, thinking that they were going to then be heading towards Florida. But in reality, they were just traveling deeper into the Atlantic. As the planes started getting close to the Bermuda Triangle, their signals began to fail. The last few things the pilots ever said were, and I quote, "Everything looks strange, even the ocean. And it looks like we are entering white water. We're completely lost." Then the communication was cut completely and they were never heard from again. In our second spot, we have the severed feet. What would you do if you were out on a nice stroll on the beach when you came across someone's missing arm or foot? Believe it or not, this has happened a number of times. Since 2007, severed human feet have been washing up on the shore of the Pacific Northwest. The first was a right foot still inside of a size 12 Adidas shoe. The second was again a right foot, size 12, but it was in a Reebok shoe. Since then, 15 more feet have washed up on shore. To this day, we don't know who they belong to or what happened to them, or even if they were victims of the same killer. It's really freaking creepy if you ask me. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Witchcraft. This is the name of a boat that set sail on December 22nd, 1967. On board was the captain, Dan Burrack, and his friend, Patrick Horgan. The two headed off to get a good look at Miami's Christmas lights. However, after traveling just 1 mile out, they contacted the Coast Guard, saying that the boat had hit something, but there was no damage. Dan seemed to be calm on the call to the Coast Guard and said they just needed a tow to the shore. So they figured that the boat's propeller was just damaged or something like that. The Coast Guard immediately went out, but when he arrived at the spot the boat was said to be, no one was there. It took him only 19 minutes to get there, yet the boat was already gone. Here's where it gets super weird. This boat was virtually unsinkable. Not only did they have life jackets and lifeboats on board, but the boat had a special flotation device installed in it. This made it basically unsinkable. So even if the boat started filling with water, part of it would still be sticking out of the water, so the Coast Guard would be able to see it. And also, they had flare guns on board with them, so if something serious started to happen, they could have set those off. They didn't. The boat and the 2 friends on board just disappeared without a trace, and to this day have never been found. Starting off this countdown, we have the Violent Whirlpool. Located in Scotland, the Corrigrium Maelstrom is a permanent, powerful vortex. In fact, this is said to be the 3rd strongest in the world, and depending on the weather conditions, this thing can get pretty deadly. In fact, there are countless tales of ships being sucked into the whirlpool's vortex. The lucky ones will just get spun out of control, but they'll survive. Not only that, but this whirlpool can produce standing waves as high as 15 feet high. So you don't want to be anywhere near it when that happens. In our 9th spot, we have the Underwater Memorial. The Sunken Crosses of Malpeque is an underwater graveyard located in Spain. This spot commemorates a group of 16th century missionaries that were killed by pirates before being thrown into the sea. The site features 40 stone crosses at the bottom of the sea off of the coast of La Palma in the Canary Islands. The site was created in 2000. Locals created 1 cross for each person that was killed, and then they purposely had them sunk in their honor. So it is literally an underwater graveyard, which is cool, but it's also creepy at the same time. It is now forever a site to remember the horrors that happened to these people. Moving on to number 8, we have Jason Voorhees. Imagine you're swimming along in a lake minding your own business when all of a sudden you see Jason from Friday the 13th, chained to the bottom of the lake. I don't know about you, but I would become like Michael Phelps and just speed swim my way out of that ocean. Here's the thing, there is a Jason at the bottom of a lake. Turns out that someone put a creepy statue of Jason Voorhees at the bottom of a lake in Arizona. The chains around him had a creepy touch as well. Turns out the statue was placed in Lake Pleasant in 2018 by a diver named Zachary Nagy. According to him, it took weeks upon weeks to make. When asked why he did it, he said that it is common for divers to place objects underwater, kind of to act like a marker. Apparently there's a poker table, fake skeletons, even a Christmas tree down there as well. But this one is definitely the creepiest. It must have given some of the divers quite a fright when they first swam into it. Now, Lake Pleasant Regional Park supervisors as well as local officials instructed Zachary to remove the statue. He didn't end up doing so though. But the creepiest part? When they went down there to remove it themselves, it was nowhere to be seen. Moving on to number 7, we have the underwater Stonehenge. England's Stonehenge is a pretty mysterious site. There's a lot we don't know about it, like how was it built? What was its purpose? So on and so on. Well, it turns out that there is a Stonehenge located underwater. It can be found at the bottom of Lake Michigan. There are a bunch of random rock formations that scientists have been struggling to explain, but it's believed that they are thousands of years old. What makes it even weirder is that on one of these stones, they discovered a carving of a mastodon, a relative of an elephant that went extinct like over 10,000 years ago. So they're like, maybe this structure has been here since the last ice age. We really don't know how old they truly are, who built them, and why. In our 6th spot, we have the massive shark statue. So it appears as if divers enjoy giving other divers heart attacks. This time, someone placed a giant shark statue underwater. Holy, if I saw that thing, I legit would have a heart attack, or I'd probably just choke on the water and drown. The shark can be found in Lake Neuchatel in Switzerland. This is 10 times scarier than Jason. Like at first glance, it looks real. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Sunken Sculpture Park. Located in the Caribbean just off the coast of Grenada, you will find a number of underwater statues. Some of them include life-sized casts of local children or a ring of people holding hands. Nowadays, the sculptures are covered in vegetation and in barnacles. The ocean has completely claimed them. So I won't lie, it looks pretty creepy, but it definitely is a place to see. In our 4th spot, we have the Dead Humans. Now, this is a very undeniably creepy art site. Located just off the coast of North Africa in the shallow waters around one of the Canary Islands, you have 200 human figures laying dead on the ocean floor. This was an art installation trying to highlight global warming. All the dead humans are said to be victims of global warming. This site is called Human Gyre and it is open to the public if you wish to dive down and see it for yourself. If you do, you'll see a ring of humans stacked on top of each other. If I dove down and I didn't have a warning about what this was, I would literally think that it was a portal to hell or something. Coming in at number 3, we have the Dragon's Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle, or the Devil's Sea, or the Pacific Bermuda Triangle, is an area where a number of different ships and military vessels have gone missing, which is why it's considered the Pacific Bermuda Triangle. Fun, not so fun fact, it is considered one of the most dangerous marine locations around the world. In 1950, a team of researchers exploring the area set out, and they never returned home. Their bodies were never found. And over the years, a number of US and Japanese ships have gone missing in that area. One time, 9 American ships went missing in that area on a day with perfect weather. To this day, they haven't been found, and we literally don't know what happened to them. Moving on to number 2, we have the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is located in the western part of the Pacific Ocean, and it is the deepest part of the ocean. It is about 2,550 kilometers long and 69 kilometers wide. The exact depth though is unknown because we haven't been able to get to the bottom of it, which makes it pretty creepy. Scientists say that there could be sea creatures down there that we have never even heard of, but we won't be able to find out because we can't get down there. It's so deep that apparently if you take Mount Everest and put it in the trench, its summit would still be underwater by more than 2 kilometers. So yeah, it's really deep and creepy. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the ghost ships. Now, there is an area in the ocean rumored to be incredibly haunted, and this is located just adjacent to the Bermuda Triangle. How fitting. So this is the shoreless Sargasso Sea. There's no shoreline, hence its name. Its boundaries are ocean currents. Not only is it filled with seaweed so thick that it floats on the surface of the water, but it's haunted. A number of people have spotted long lost ships floating in the area. When they pull up to it, no one is on board. Not only that, but others have claimed to see faces appear in the seaweed, as if someone was trapped in the ocean looking up at them. How creepy is that?